to one and all present. It's indeed my great pleasure and honor and a matter of pride to introduce my teacher, Dr. Shraddha Diwan. She's a physiotherapist who needs no introduction, but as it's a formality to do, I'll definitely do the needful. Dr. Shraddha Diwan ma'am has done her bachelor's from Paraplegia Hospital, Civil, and followed by that, her post-graduation from SBB College of Physiotherapy, Ahmedabad. She's also a PhD holder from Gujarat University. She has guided various PhD students and MPT students and is a MPT and PhD guide associated with Gujarat University. She has published various papers and holds position in GSCPT, Gujarat State Council of Physiotherapy, and GPTA, Gujarat Physiotherapy Academicians. She is also a founder member of the Ahmedabad Pediatric Physiotherapy Group. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Kirani.
Good morning, madam, and it is our real privilege to have you on PU webinar, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation from Parul University and Faculty of Physiotherapy. Looking forward to have a much interesting and interactive session from you.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you for having me on this platform, and it is really nice to see you there, and through that we will be having a very nice learning fest for early intervention. Thank you. Should I start? Very warm good morning to everyone. Myself, Dr. Shraddha Diwan, and I'm going to take you through the journey of early intervention in childcare. I'm really thankful to Parul University and Dr. Bhavna Gadvi madam and my own student. I actually am feeling proud to be introduced by my student, that is Dr. Shivani Verma. So when we talk early intervention, our today's learning objective is to understand the need of the early intervention, to identify what are the problem areas, and to really find out, to figure out which are the therapy solutions available for children. So when we discuss early intervention, it is a system of coordinated services that promotes the child's age-appropriate growth and development. And it supports the families during the critical early years because these patients are already having some kind of high risk. So it is a teamwork of multiple consultants. They may be belonging to different services, and it is our job to identify the child who is especially in need of these services. Why this early intervention is needed? If you know one terminology that is called as a neonatal mortality rate, that is the infant death before 29 days postnatally. Although there is a decline in overall infant mortality rate across the world, there are problems with the infant mortality rate in terms of India, because quite a lot of time there is unavailability of the quality neonatal care and trained manpower at the grassroots level. We see that there are opportunities, there are facilities available, but most of them are available at an urban setup. And that is why there is a need to be educated and to educate others at the grassroots level. We know that there are recent advances in the field of gynecologists. We see nowadays there is a trend to get married at later ages. Following that, the women are having late pregnancies, and that arises a lot of issues of conception. Following that, the women are going for the IVF, right? So for IVF, to get the success of IVF, the gynecologists are putting more number of embryos, and those embryos, to get the success, the women are delivering triplets and twins. Okay, when the nutrition is being shared between the twins, between the fetus, it leads to multiple high-risk pregnancies. But thanks to the advances in the neonatal care, there is a significant decrease in the morbidity and mortality rates of the high-risk infants. And there are now increased survival rate of the high-risk babies. But when there is increased survival of the high-risk babies, it is our duty to identify them early, to provide them early therapeutic interventions, and to provide the higher quality of life for the family as well as the child, so that they do not become a burden for the society. So early identification of high-risk baby is of utmost importance. There is an evolutionary change in the role of early intervention. Now, the early intervention begins from the NICU, where the category of the risk has been categorized into major risk, moderate risk, and a severe risk. We use the neural plasticity. I'll tell you what is the neural plasticity later on. We use multidisciplinary team. It is not a single person who is leading the rehabilitation or who is saving the life. No one alone can save the life of a child. You need to provide quality to the life. There are many tools which are available for early identification, and following that the immediate action has to be taken and lessen the effect of disability or delay. That is the main goal of early intervention team. Now we know that the child has a normal development. All infant has that normal development. They pass through the physical development, and following that normal physical development, there are more normal sensory motor experiences which are felt, and through that there is a normal perception of the movement in the brain. And why this normal perception of the brain is important? Because it is bonding, it is linking the normal bonds in the brain. So that normal perception of the movement is of utmost importance. But what will happen if child is having some neuropathology, some problem in the brain? That neuropathology, either it is a severe spasticity or say suppose moderate spasticity, and this child is having opisthotonus. So now the child is having abnormal tone and the abnormal posture. Or the child may have hypotonia. The child is having Down syndrome. That may be a genetic condition. There is no brain damage, but that is a genetic condition. So our job is to identify the patient, the child with the Down syndrome or with the spasticity or with the dyskinesia early, because with the brain damage also the child will try to move with the abnormal tone and posture. So those abnormal tone and posture along with the movement, attempt to move, will give rise to abnormal pattern of movement, and that abnormal movement pattern will be perceived as a normal, because that child may not have felt what is normal. So he is bonding, he is understanding that this abnormal movement is the only normal movement. And with the repeated use of abnormal movement, there are strong neuronal linkages, which is really very difficult to change. So here there is a role of early intervention to get this abnormal pattern of movement to be converted into normal movement pattern. There are various areas of concern. It is not only about the physical development. You need to see the cognitive development, you need to see the communication, you need to see the social or emotional development, as well as the adaptive development. Everything goes hand in hand. The moment physical development is restricted, it restricts the mobility, and which ultimately affects the cognition, ultimately affects the communication and the overall growth of a child. If we see the postnatal brain development at birth, it is the brain of a newborn child is nearly 25% of the adult brain. But by 6 years of age, it reaches to nearly 95% of the adult brain. Because of the myelination of the brain, because of the synaptic development, neuronal maturation, and the glial cell growth. All of them contributes to reach the brain to the adult level. And that is by 6 years is the important age where we should start our early intervention. We should get the maximum benefit of neural plasticity. If you see here, the image on the left side shows the brain, the neuronal pattern of a normal brain, and right side shows the neuronal pattern of a abnormal brain. This is what is happening in the early childhood, and you can see how the neuronal growth is developed with the experience when the child is becoming adult. Okay, so what will happen if we leave them develop in an abnormal way? If we permit that opisthotonus, if we permit that Down syndrome ka hypotonia, what will happen? The brain cell will continue to develop in an abnormal way, and that is the reason we need to modify it. The studies are saying that experience can modify the brain cell connections, and that tremendous ability to regenerate by the brain cells is called as a neural plasticity. The image on the left side shows the synapses before the experience. You can see that single synapse on the dendritic spine, while in the left side, in the right side, you can see that there are formation of new synapses from the new axon terminals, and there are even formation of the new synapses from the original terminals. So what we are supposed to provide is, we are supposed to provide the experience of what is called as normal, right? So like I said earlier, it is a risk stratification which is done by the neurologist, and here it shows mild risk of neurodevelopmental disorder, moderate risk of neurodevelopmental disorder, and the high risk of neurodevelopmental disorder. So we categorize the child according to the history, according to the objective data what we are having, and we can provide at least changes in patients who are at mild to moderate risk of neurodevelopmental disorder, right? So what we do, once the child is there into the NICU, we start with the neurodevelopmental follow-up OPD. Now this is a group of consultants, this is a teamwork where a group of consultants are sitting together. So the group is, one of the pediatrician is there, physiotherapist is there, pediatric neurologist is there, and one of the speech language pathologist is there. So 4 people sitting together and checking the baby who is discharged from the NICU to get the data whether the baby is developing in a normal way or not. As a part of physiotherapy, we are using test of infant motor performance and Alberta Infant Motor Scale to check the development. As a part of pediatrician, what they are looking is, they are monitoring the growth of a baby. So initially when the baby is discharged, we call the baby every weekly, just to know whether the baby has gained the weight, just to know whether the baby is growing in terms of the head circumference, in terms of the weight, and in terms of the height. And we keep a growth monitoring chart. Later on, we see that we call the patient, we reduce the frequency of the visit, we call them monthly. Depending on the characteristic or depending on the presentation of the data, we decide the frequency of visit. So when we are monitoring the head circumference, we see that child with cerebral palsy, we are having early plateauing of the head circumference, and that may be owing to the craniostenosis. And having the microcephaly is one of the critical sign, early sign to pick up that the child will develop with cerebral palsy. You can see on the right side, the baby who is presented on the right side is having body disproportion. He is more obese than the usual at the chronological age, right? So we investigate for the thyroid dysfunction also, and that is to be done when you are checking it again and again. Otherwise, you will miss the baby's early important period. Second thing which we advise at the neurodevelopmental follow-up period is a kangaroo mother care. So this kangaroo mother care is a unique approach to reach at a grassroots level. At our institute, we have adopted kangaroo mother training as a part of NICU treatment protocol. And this is the KMC India network where 5 major hospitals have adopted this KMC as a routine practice guidelines. What is done over here is, the baby is to be put in the mother, between the mother's breasts. It has to be open breast. You cover the baby along with you, wrap the baby, and then you just let the baby be there. So the baby will be getting the warmth and the baby will gain weight. It is a scientifically approved method which is very cheap, and it promotes too much of the parent-infant relationship, as well as it helps in getting more of breastfeeding, and it gives you weight gain. So weight gain, if you see, it is 2.5 kg birth weight. The preterm baby is also supposed to reach up to 2.5 kg birth weight to get the discharge. So that becomes your discharge criteria. Okay, and kangaroo mother care, there is no need to go for the very hi-fi type of setting. You can advise this KMC at home also. Not even the mother, the father or any other family member can also give the kangaroo mother care. So it is proven to be very cheap and economical way of getting the routine weight gain. Other than kangaroo mother care, we have various approaches, that is swaddling and sensory enriched environment. So if you see here, the baby, the fetus inside the mother's womb, he is getting the auditory stimulation, which is very soothing. It comes through the breathing of the mother. The natural visual stimulation is a natural dim red color, right? The vestibular stimulation is through the fetus is floating in the amniotic fluid. So the vestibular stimulation is also very nice, right? While when the baby is delivered earlier and is kept in the NICU, you can think that there is contradiction of the various sensory systems which is there in the NICU. Instead of that dim red color, there are multiple lights, there are multiple sounds, there are a movement of the trolleys, which is very noxious to feel by a newborn baby. This is not a natural environment, right? So it is our duty to give them very nice sensory enriched environment and to make them feel like they are in a womb, right? So to complete that prematurity, you need to provide that warmth to the baby, right? So we advise even swaddling during the NICU stay and even after being discharged from the home. We promote more of a hand-to-mouth activity, which is also very soothing and self-calming behavior. We advise sensory enriched environment in terms of a hammock. Okay, so that hammock is also providing a very nice vestibular stimulation. It promotes even physical development. It promotes more flexion, and the toys hanging over the hammock will give you very nice visual stimulation and auditory stimulation. Right? So there are various strategies. These strategies are to be implemented by the maternal education. So mother is the person who can be the key person in early intervention. You need to teach the mother to monitor various equipments when the child is admitted in the NICU. You need to teach the life support system that if some buzzer is playing, you need to immediately call the NICU nurse. You need to teach the low tone. When the fetus is inside the mother and is completing the full term, the baby would be having complete flexion. Earlier the baby is being delivered, there is no chance of developing that flexion, right? Because the flexion develops in the third trimester, right? So earlier the delivery, there is poor flexor tone and more is the extensor tone, right? So you need to teach that, identify the low tone posture, position the child to foster the optimum visual and motor development, promote flexion through various positioning tools, promote midline orientation by keeping the hand over the hand or hand to mouth activity or even sometimes leg to mouth activity, and provide more of symmetry. Because these are the things which we are going to deal later on if we do not touch up here in the NICU or during the early phase. You need to teach them to use various cushions to get the position, avoid too much bright light and facilitate more of a dim light. Keep the crib in a silent zone to avoid that noxious auditory stimulations. You can even tell the mother to place stuffed toys to modify the environment and making little more child friendly. and introduce sensory toys and allow the baby sufficient time to react. Right? So even if the mother is feeding the baby, the mother needs to talk to the baby, just give a smile to the baby, right? So that the child will learn to react in a more appropriate way. You need to really teach the mother to reduce the hyperextension of the neck and the trunk. If you remember that baby with the opisthotonus, he was going back, right? So it was too much of hyperextension, too much of hyperextension of the neck and trunk, the shoulder girdle was elevated, and there was a retraction of the scapula. You take the lower extremities, they were completely extended. So you need to teach that correct positioning to facilitate or promote flexion, encourage hand to mouth activities, and encourage reciprocal kicking of the lower extremities. Another approach which we are educating the parents is a preterm massage. So this massage technique is the technique which is specially designed to be applied on preterm babies. It is our Indian tradition. Massage is our Indian tradition, and each and every country they are adopting massage from us. But now we are again back with the massage. So here in the massage techniques, you need to encourage you need to teach this massage techniques over the occipital lobe, over the head, over the back. You need to give massage technique to the rib cage, and this rib cage massage will give you very nice chest expansion. And this chest expansion is really useful to reduce those abnormal and adventitious sounds and the collection of secretions, even if the baby is there in the NICU. NICU, it is the baby would be given to chest physiotherapy also. But once the baby is discharged at home, you need to teach. The mother would be really scary to apply chest physiotherapy. So teaching them massage will give them very nice feeling. You can teach the massage technique to relieve the constipation, because so many times it happens that child is having constipation and the child is severely cranky, severely crying, okay, and you don't know what is the problem. It might be the constipation which is creating the problem. So simply before even Colimex, even the drops of Colimex, before that you can apply the massage and get the constipation relief. You can even advise the passive and passive movements to the lower extremities and to the upper extremities, and you can give massage to the oral region. Now, massage to the oral region is again a beautiful technique to encourage the feeding, right? Because these patients are delivered earlier, so their sucking reflex has not developed yet. So sucking is a problem for them. We'll see it later on also. So given massage is a complete package which you can teach the Anganwadi workers, you can teach the parents to be incorporated in the therapy and to get the benefits at a cheaper level. So that is your early intervention reaching to the root level. This is a scientific study which shows that music therapy taught to the parent, taught to the mother, improves the parent-infant interaction. So evidences are also available which shows very simple and very cheap techniques to get the benefit. This is again one evidence which shows that hammock provides a very nice vestibular stimulation. Now this hammock is not a square hammock. This is a typical routine सादू Indian hammock just to get the flexion. ઘોડિયું આપણે કહીએ ને સિમ્પલ ઘોડિયું અથવા ચાદરની અંદર જે તમે એને હેંગ કરી નાખો તો that provides you a very nice flexion, will facilitate shoulder girdle protraction, will facilitate midline orientation, and along with that it will give you very nice soothing vestibular stimulation which is helpful to gain the weight and to get all these benefits, right? So evidences are also present. If we see the feeding issues, what happens in a full-term normal infant is they are having 10 to 30 sucks per burst with 1:1:1 rhythm of suck, swallow, breathe, and child may pause between the bursts. So at 34 weeks of post-conceptional age, there is a coordination of suck-swallow breathe because of myelination of the medulla, right? So what happens if the baby is delivered before 34 weeks of conceptional age, right? So all those preterm babies, here there is lack of myelination of the medulla and resulting into poor sucking. So those who are getting premature delivery, sucking and feeding is also a problem. Or those even if getting delivered with the full term, they are having hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and following that they are having immature disorganized sucking pattern. They are having poor coordination of the suck, swallow, breathe. They may lack in the rhythm, and it is a hard work for the development of the skill. Even the mother feeding the baby, lactation is a very natural physiological process. But because the baby is supposed to be delivered at full term and the baby is delivered earlier, that oxytocin release is also not there. Okay, so mother is having also poor lactation, and already the mother is having stress to get the delivery of a low birth weight baby. So that is also a problem, that the baby might not be able to suck well. And so many times the babies are spending months to nearly 2 months in the NICU. And during this long journey, it is a skill of a physiotherapist. It is a skill of a physiotherapist to get the baby from rice tube feeding to the breastfeeding. We can even take the chances of NNF, non-nutritive feeding, non-nutritive sucking, and so many times it happens that during the NICU stay, we are not able to get this feeding back, and we need to get the discharge even with the rice tube. So at that time, your primary goal is to convert the rice tube to the feeding tube. Other than this, in the neurodevelopmental follow-up OPD, we advise ROP screening. That ROP screening is a retinopathy of prematurity screening, and it is adopted by most of the NICU that ROP screening has to be done by 2 to 3 weeks. Here what we are doing is, we are seeing that whether the vascularization of the eye is present or not. And if that ROP screening first done at 2 to 3 weeks, if you think that the vascularization is not proper, you can refer the patient again. You can take the follow-up of the patient again and do ROP screening again, and by that time you need to start with the extensive visual stimulation with alternate eye patching. At times it is possible that there is persistent vision lacking, then you may start with the vision therapy also. Along with this, children with cerebral palsy used to develop squint as well as visual field defects. So many times if it is a direct occipital lobe lesion, the patient will be ending up with the cortical visual impairment. And for that also you need to further investigate the patient to see the visual evoked potential. Right? So that is why you are supposed to identify the patient earlier. So many NICUs adopt that USG cranium is a cheap version, cheap way to do the to see the tissues of the brain. So USG cranium is relatively non-invasive, and that should be done by 7 to 14 days or at discharge. And what it will reveal if there is a brain injury. And if if the USG cranium is showing some kind of abnormality, so many times the neurologist may not refer the patient for the MRI. And why this MRI is needed? Because you are looking for the pyramidal signs which will develop by 12 to 18 months of the age. So USG cranium is an early identifier, early indication to suggest that there are chances of brain injury. Along with this, if we see the hearing screening, one of the cheaper tool is there and non-invasive tool is there, which is called as auto acoustic emission. This auto OA screening has to be done at 36 to 40 weeks of the age or at discharge, just to screen the hearing, whether the baby is able to hear or not. And if OA is a screening tool, if OA is showing is that there is no hearing impairment, you can go ahead with the therapy. And if there are problems with the screening, you need to start with the auditory stimulation at the earlier stage. And if you think that there is a hearing impairment, which is really profound or severe in nature, through BERA testing, you can refer the patient for the cochlear implant. And getting the cochlear implant done at an early stage will improve the speech and will improve the cognition. Right? That is really very much important for a child development. Another thing which is done at a neurodevelopmental follow-up OPD is a developmental screening. So what we do here is a Denver testing. Now this Denver testing is to screen the child at risk of developmental delay and monitor the child longitudinally over a period of time till 6 years of age. So what is done over here? In the left side column, there is a general development in terms of gross motor, fine motor, adaptive, personal, social and language development. And on the top level, there is the age of the child. So what you are supposed to do is, you are supposed to put a ruler over here. Okay, J child chronological age છે એની ઉપર તમે ruler મૂકી દો. The items on the left side should be passed by the child. If those items are not clear by the child, then you can suspect that there is some delay or there is some problem. So this is a developmental screening test which has a very good reliability and validity, and it is really very easy to apply Denver test. Going more into the details, if you think that the patient is having some issues, you can really go for the neurological examination. So this neurological examination, we may not do each and every neurological examination in detail, especially if the patient is having a minor risk. But if you get the patient with the major risk, then you really go for the posture, movement and reflexes. So here this Hammersmith neonatal or infant neurological examination is there, which gives you the posture of a newborn baby. Whether the baby is in a flexion posture or it is more extended, what is the popliteal angle, what is the scarf sign. It is way beyond the limit of this webinar to discuss Hammersmith in detail, but you can Google it and you can search. It is very nice pictorial presentation of all the postures. Through that also you can identify that this child is having problem, is having neurological examination, which is a problem. Right? Now, if you see the studies, there is a systematic review of tests to predict the cerebral palsy in young children. So this systematic review just gives you an idea whether what is the sensitivity and specificity of various assessment tools. So this correlates general movement assessment, MRI, cranial ultrasound and the neurological examination. Right? So according to it, it says that general movement assessment is of highest importance, having the highest sensitivity and specificity to predict that this child will develop cerebral palsy. Second is MRI brain lesion, that also predicts pretty nicely. And the third is your neurological examination. So this general movement assessment is a specified assessment which you apply over the newborn babies, and it is again a combination of analysis of the posture, movement and the reflexes which are present in a newborn child. Right? Beyond this, there are other surgical concerns as well. The first surgical concern for the early child development is a brachial plexus palsy, or it is also called as a obstructive brachial plexus palsy. And for obstructive brachial plexus palsy, we need to refer the patient in a team, and that team for the OBPP is called as a comprehensive brachial plexus clinic. Right? So in that, we see that when the baby is delivered, especially in a priming mother, or if the baby is of more weight, priming mother ne 4 kg, 4.5 kg baby deliver thawanu hoy, and the gynecologist is practicing the routine labor process, the vaginal delivery, and there is a traction injury. So that traction injury can give rise to various various severity of brachial plexus injury in terms of neurapraxia, or it is a exanthesis, or it is a root avulsion. So whenever there is a OBPP, at that time also the steps has to be taken in a very fast way. So this slide shows that there is a brachial plexus birth injury, and this is an algorithm of your management, right? So here what they are saying that whenever there is a brachial plexus palsy, you need to observe the child for first 3 months of the life for return of shoulder abduction, elbow flexion, and wrist and finger extension. You need to wait for the return of biceps muscle. Biceps ni activity avi jai, at least they need to wait for the 5 to 6 months. If biceps is recovery, then you can continue for the physiotherapy and observe until the age of 2 years. Right? And if by the age of 5 to 6 months, if biceps is not returning and there is a presence of Werner syndrome, that is one sign that the child need to undergo the microsurgery. Right? This is also if the patient is there with the brachial plexus palsy and has not gone to the comprehensive brachial plexus clinic, then the child would be having typical Bater stiff position, right? So that Bater stiff position will lead to internal rotation contracture. So here again, your physical therapy is of utmost importance because you need to stimulate the muscles to get the activation. You need to give again more sensory re-education to that upper extremity. You need to even prevent that learned non-use, which we usually having in a hemiplegic patient. So now the studies are also saying that learned non-use develops even in patients with the brachial plexus palsy, right? So you need to identify that and you need to start the management. This slide shows that even if your surgical decision matters if you identify the child earlier. Suppose it is a severe traction injury and along with that there is a dislocation of the shoulder, or so many times there is a fracture of the clavicle following this difficult labor. So that need to be identified earlier, and if it is early recognized, then there is a minimal glenoid deformity, and if it is a late recognized, then you end up into more invasive surgery, right? So that is the need you need to understand. The second surgical concern is the development of spina bifida. So here also there is a comprehensive team and you need to refer the patient to the pediatric surgeon. Right? So this can be identified in the NICU. The pediatric surgeon is supposed to close that and is supposed to refer the patient for the early stimulation of the lower extremities or even upper extremities if there is the level of injury is higher. This is again one concern where there is a congenital dislocation of the hip and which need to be intervened very early. Even in the NICU, they do the plaster cast by pediatric orthopedic surgeon. So many times, another condition that is a CTEV that may be present because of malpositioning of the fetus in the uterus, and that need to be corrected by pediatric orthopedic surgeon through plaster or through Ponseti correction. So if you are dealing it, you are starting with the early intervention, it will reduce the surgical need, right? Another important condition is a hydrocephalus. So whenever in the neurodevelopmental follow-up OPD, you are measuring the head circumference and you are getting that rather than microcephaly, the head size is expanding, it is increasing. That is an indication that the child is having hydrocephalus. Okay, so for that child, you need to take the opinion of a pediatric neurosurgeon. And you need to get the surgery done by VP shunting. And this child is also at risk of having some cognitive or motor issues. Other than this, we have a we need to see the overall development of the child. So if the child is not babbling by the age of 12 months, or not giving you back and forth gestures by the age of 12 months, or not having no words by 16 months, or no two-word meaningful phrases by 24 months, then it is a red flag signs of autism. This is the indication when the child, even if the child is normally developing physically. So physical development is all right, but there is a problem in the communication, there is a problem in the social development, there is a problem in the speech development. And along with that, there is a repetitive stereotypic play behaviors, which is very alarming. And you need to teach the parents those red flag signs. Even any loss of speech, babbling, or social skills at an early age is one of the red flag signs for the autism. So you need to teach all these things in an early intervention setup, and you need to refer the patient for the sensory integration therapy as well as applied behavioral analysis to foster more inputs. Coming to the evidences, this is a Cochrane database systematic review which is done in 2015, which says that early developmental intervention programs provided post-hospital discharge to prevent the motor and cognitive impairment in the preterm infants. So you need to encourage more and more early developmental intervention services. It gives you positive influence on the cognitive and motor outcomes during the infancy. It improves the cognitive benefits and which will be persisting through the preschool age. So for that, we need to provide more and more variety of early intervention programs. This is Tummy Time is one of the important program which is advised to the parent to be followed as a homebound program, and which is invented by a pediatric neurodevelopmental occupational therapist, and you need to teach that. Other than this, there are other interventions which are also having evidences like active movements, passive movements, multimodal parent stimulation techniques, the infant task-specific enriched environment, and various massage tools. Okay, so that massage, if you just Google the evidence of massage, there will be n number of articles which are supporting massage to be very non-invasive way of getting the benefits. Another important thing is a treadmill intervention. So this is one evidence which says that children under 6 years of age at risk of delay in the motor skills should undergo early treadmill training to accelerate the development of independent walking in children with Down syndrome and even in children with cerebral palsy or general developmental delay. So these are few evidences which are showing that providing the early intervention less than age of 6 years will promote more and more benefits to the child. Okay, so here I am ending my lecture, and I asked Shivani to get the questions if you have any questions. Yes, Shivani, can we have questions?
No, ma'am, there are no questions as of now. There was one question regarding what is non-nutritive suckling.
Okay. So, non-nutritive sucking is a sucking program which is given to the newborn baby, which is taught to the mother just to empty the breast. Okay, the breast is not with the full of milk. The mother need to empty the milk and then providing the sucking opportunity to the infant, to the newborn. There is a connection. The newborn baby is even able to feel the sense of that milk. Okay, the smell of the milk is also very stimulating. So even if there is a problem with the swallowing, you can practice that non-nutritive feeding. Okay, so there is no milk, so there are no chances of aspiration, right? And still there is a lot of the mother-infant relationship is developing. Mother is feeling so much of satisfaction that my baby is feeding through my breast, and not through the tube. So these are the opportunities to be tried before starting the nutritive sucking. Milk साथे अगर breastfeeding permit करे, तो that is called as a nutritive sucking. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll just see if there are any more questions. Just give me a minute.
I have just tried to cover all the aspects in the child care, not restricting it to only brain lesions. You need to see the umbrella, you need to see all the areas of development and all possible ways of child care where you can apply the early intervention.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us such a comprehensive idea, right from hydrocephalus to CTV, all the neurological as well as the common orthopedic conditions, the congenital conditions which we see in the children. Also, the care that we can give, the advices which we could give to the parents. This just shows the vast scope that we have as physiotherapists in this field. Ma'am, is there any specific care currently in the pandemic time which you would like to add here, which we could take care of, especially now when we go to the NICU?
Yes, in
ma'am.
the NICU also, if you see most of the, if the babies are the newborn babies, those who are delivered during the pandemic, and if they are able to fit into the home program, the pediatrician is advising home program only. Only they are taking the patients who require, those who require more resuscitation, the patients those who are on the ventilator, where chest physiotherapy can be given with the utmost care, because this patient is already on a high risk side, and when you carry something from the outside, it doubles the risk. So right now the current practice is, even at our NICU we do not have too many patients, right? So pediatrician is also advising a lot of home care, and they are also doing more of a telecalling, just to reinforce the kangaroo mother care, just to reinforce the feeding patterns, just to reinforce the massage technique, right?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for a very interactive session. It would really give great impact on their knowledge.
Thank you so much again, ma'am. Thank you for giving me opportunity to share a little of my knowledge with all the students. I hope it would have been justified my topic.
It's honor. It's really honor. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you,
Yes.
ma'am.
Ma'am, we extend our heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for spending your precious time with us, for sharing your knowledge with all of our students and us. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was indeed a very knowledgeable and fruitful experience, a very fruitful 1 hour that we spent with you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you, Shivani. I'm feeling really proud that you are at such a level, and you have moderated the session so nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. We shall end the meeting now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.